The Intrepid's jump drive sputtered and whined as Elena ordered maximum burn away from the debris field of the Vraxian flagship. 3 smaller alien vessels broke formation to pursue, their weapon systems charging. Reactor at 137% capacity. Commander, engineering reported through static. Coolant systems failing on decks 3 through 7. Elena studied the tactical display. The alien pursuers were faster, more maneuverable, and undamaged. Conventional tactics meant certain death. Reverse course, she ordered, drawing shocked stares from her surviving bridge crew. Ma'am. Lieutenant Park's voice cracked with disbelief. You heard me. Fold reverse. All power to forward momentum. Divert life support if necessary. The wounded human vessel shuddered as its engines fought physics itself, reversing their desperate retreat. The pursuing Vraxian ships hesitated, their formation faltering at the inexplicable human behavior. They're expecting us to run, Elena explained, her voice steady despite the blood trickling from her temple wound. Their tactical doctrines have no contingency for prey turning predator. The Intrepid accelerated toward the alien vessels, its damaged hull creaking under the strain. Elena watched the radiation readings spike as the Vraxian ships charged their primary weapons. Ready remaining kinetic batteries. Target their weapon ports. Fire the moment they begin discharge sequence. The bridge fell silent save for the groaning of stressed metal and the beeping of medical alerts from wounded crew. The distance closed with agonizing slowness. They're firing. Tactical shouted. Now, Elena ordered. The Intrepid's remaining railguns launched their projectiles precisely as the Vraxian energy weapons discharge. The tungsten rods sliced through the momentarily vulnerable emission ports, detonating the energy buildup within the alien ships themselves. 2 Vraxian vessels erupted in spectacular chain reactions, while the third spun out of control, venting atmosphere. Resume escape trajectory, Elena ordered calmly, though her white-knuckled grip on her command chair betrayed her tension. As the Intrepid limped away, Elena accessed the ship's data core. The brief engagement had yielded terabytes of sensor readings on Vraxian technology, information that might mean the difference between humanity's survival and extinction. Lieutenant Park, prepare a comprehensive analysis package and ready it for quantum burst transmission to Earth, she commanded. Encrypt it with my personal codes. She stared at the fragments of alien technology their sensors had analyzed during the battle. The Vraxians' shield harmonics, weapons frequencies, and engine signatures all revealed a civilization that had evolved along a single technological path. Elegant, advanced, but predictable. A civilization that had never needed to face an enemy who thought fundamentally differently. And send a personal message to Earth Defense Command, Elena added. Tell them we've discovered both our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. Their technology outclasses ours in every category, but they've forgotten what it means to fight for survival. The Intrepid's damaged sensor arrays detected additional Vraxian signatures converging on their position, a full battle group responding to the destruction of their flagship. Prepare jump calculations for Saul, Elena ordered. We have 18 minutes before intercept. Make them count. As her crew raced to comply, Elena reviewed the preliminary analysis of Vraxian communications intercepted during the battle. Their incredulous reactions to the primitive human weapons that had somehow penetrated their impenetrable defenses. Their confusion at tactical decisions that defied their strategic algorithms. Humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin. They were outgunned, outmatched, and hopelessly outedged. But Elena allowed herself a grim smile. The Vraxians had no concept of asymmetric warfare, of desperate innovation, of fighting dirty. And that might just be enough to save Earth. The Devastator prototype hung in the orbital construction dock, its asymmetrical design a stark contrast to the sleek Vraxian vessels displayed on the adjacent holographic screens. Dr. Chen studied the final diagnostic readouts through bleary eyes as fabricator drones swarmed around the massive battleship. Sir, we integrated the salvaged Vraxian navigation computer. his assistant reported. "But their power regulation systems are incompatible with our reactor design." Chen nodded absently. "Good. Tear it apart and rebuild it our way. Their systems can't handle power fluctuations beyond 2% tolerance. Ours operate at up to 30% variance." He pulled up the latest battle simulations. Earth had lost 11 more colonies in the past month alone. The Outer Defense Fleet, comprised of hastily retrofitted pre-war vessels, was being systematically annihilated. "Doctor," a military aide interrupted, "Admiral Santos requests your presence at the War Council." Chen followed reluctantly. These meetings typically devolved into shouting matches between military leaders demanding faster production and politicians concerned about resource allocation. Meanwhile, the Vraxian advance continued relentlessly. The council chamber buzzed with tense conversations that fell silent as Chen entered. A new face dominated the room. General Kovalev, the infamous butcher of the Belt Wars, recalled from retirement. "Dr. Chen." Admiral Santos gestured him forward. "The general has concerns about your design philosophy." Kovalev manipulated the holographic display, highlighting the Devastator's most unconventional features. "This monstrosity violates every principle of naval architecture. Asymmetrical power distribution, exposed weapon hardpoints, deliberately unreinforced structural sections." Chen met the general's gaze steadily. Each design element exploits a specific Vraxian tactical blind spot. Their targeting algorithms prioritize symmetric power signatures. Their weapons focus on reinforced sections, assuming they're protecting vital systems. And this, Kovalev indicated the ship's most controversial feature, a series of massive armored plates that could be jettisoned during battle. "Ablative armor," Chen explained. "When hit, these sections detach, taking the impact energy with them, and revealing fresh weapon ports the enemy wasn't targeting. The Vraxians have never encountered this approach. Their ships are designed to distribute damage, not shed it." Kovalev's expression remained skeptical. "So we're betting humanity's survival on the element of surprise. What happens when they adapt?" Chen activated his personal data pad, displaying the evolutionary tree of Vraxian technology captured from their databases. They haven't fundamentally altered their ship designs in 4,000 years. Their technology evolves through refinement, not revolution. By the time they adapt to these countermeasures, we'll have developed new ones. The chamber fell silent as satellite imagery appeared on the main display. The Vraxian fleet had reached Jupiter's orbit. Earth had weeks, not months. "We need more time," a political representative protested. "Then we buy it," Santos declared. "Operation Firebreak is approved. We sacrifice the Mars Defense Fleet in a holding action." Chen felt his chest tighten. 60 ships, 30,000 personnel, former colleagues from his Mars Institute days, a delaying tactic to gain 3 more weeks of production time. "Will it be enough?" Kovalev asked quietly. Chen gestured to the orbital construction feeds showing 12 Devastator-class ships in various stages of completion. "It has to be. The first 6 Devastators will be operational in 20 days, if the Mars fleet can hold that long." He left the implication hanging. Everyone understood the mathematics of attrition. As the council adjourned, Chen returned to the observation deck. Below him, Earth gleamed blue and peaceful, oblivious to the approaching apocalypse. He thought of his family, their refugee ship lost somewhere in the void. "Neural link established with Devastator prototype," his implant announced. "Ready for direct interface testing." Chen closed his eyes as his consciousness merged with the battleship's systems. This integration, human intuition guiding machine precision, was another advantage the Vraxians couldn't match. Their rigid hierarchies and technological orthodoxy prevented such direct communion between commander and vessel. The Devastator awaited its first battle, and whether humanity survived or perished, the galaxy would never be the same again. The UES Devastator's bridge fell silent as the last Vraxian dreadnought disappeared in a blossom of nuclear fire. Admiral Tanner surveyed the tactical display, scarcely believing what it showed. Humanity had won. Against impossible odds, 30 retrofitted vessels had defeated the pride of the Vraxian fleet. Damage assessment, he ordered, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting commands through communications disruptions. 17 ships lost. His XO reported grimly. Every surviving vessel reporting critical damage. Devastator's reactors 2 and 3 offline. Life support failing on decks 12 through 29. Tanner nodded, the cost weighing heavily. 10,000 dead in a single engagement. But the alternative, allowing the Vraxians to establish a forward operating base in humanity's closest stellar neighbor, was unthinkable. The colony? He asked, dreading the answer. Scanners show limited life signs, the science officer reported, disbelief evident in her voice. Underground bunker network still intact. Approximately 2,000 survivors. A ripple of astonishment passed through the bridge crew. After days of Vraxian planetary bombardment, no one had expected survivors. Open a channel, Tanner ordered. The communications officer shook her head. Surface-to-orbit systems destroyed. We'll need to send landing parties. Before Tanner could respond, the tactical officer interrupted. Sir, anomalous energy signatures at the system's edge. Configuration unknown. Definitely not Vraxian. Tanner stiffened. Reinforcements. Negative. Mass readings exceed anything in our database. Whatever they are, they're massive. The mysterious readings disappeared as quickly as they had emerged, leaving only scattered tachyon emissions. Tanner made a note to forward the data to Earth intelligence, but kept his focus on the immediate aftermath. Begin rescue operations, he ordered, and salvage teams to designated Vraxian wrecks. Priority on their command databanks. As the bridge crew coordinated the recovery effort, Tanner retreated to his ready room. The neural link with the Devastator systems faded to background noise as he disconnected from the tactical network. For the first time in days, he was alone with his thoughts. He accessed the battle recordings, studying how the human vessels had prevailed. The Vraxians had begun the engagement with textbook precision, their formation flawless. But when Operation Thunderclap had temporarily neutralized both fleets' electronics, the fundamental differences between the civilizations became apparent. Vraxian crews, accustomed to integrated AA tactical systems, had frozen when their technology failed. Human crews, trained to operate even without computer assistance, had adapted instantly. The brief window of chaos had been enough. Tanner's attention fixed on one particular engagement. The UES Montana, its weapons disabled and engines crippled, had deliberately rammed a Vraxian cruiser. The smaller human vessel had been destroyed instantly, but the psychological impact on the Vraxian fleet had been devastating. Their formation had broken, their coordinated fire patterns disrupted by the irrational human tactic. A priority transmission from Earth interrupted his analysis. Admiral, Fleet Command began without preamble. The Battle of Proxima Centauri has altered the strategic landscape. Vraxian High Command has withdrawn forces from 3 sectors to establish a defensive perimeter. For the first time, we have breathing room. Tanner knew what was coming next. Your fleet is to return to Earth immediately for refit and reassignment. The Devastator-class performance exceeded all projections. 20 more are being rushed into production. Tanner acknowledged the orders and ended the transmission. He returned to the bridge, where repair crews worked feverishly to restore critical systems. Set course for Earth, he commanded. Best possible speed. As the battered human fleet limped away from Proxima Centauri, Tanner studied the sensor readings from the mysterious energy signatures once more. Something told him the Vraxians might soon be the least of humanity's concerns. Beyond the immediate tactical victory, something more significant had occurred. The legend of human battleships, improbable vessels that could absorb punishment that would destroy any Vraxian ship 3 times their size, was spreading across the galaxy. Fear was a weapon more powerful than any railgun, and humanity had just deployed it on a galactic scale. Sophia traced her fingers over the holographic reconstruction of the ancient alien structure. According to the Vraxian historical data, It had once stood in what humans now call the Gobi Desert, a massive archaeology housing a thriving civilization that predated humanity's earliest ancestors by tens of thousands of years. We're calling them the predecessors, her colleague, Dr. Okafor, explained to the small group of synorchaeologists gathered in the underground lab. The Vraxian records are fragmentary, but they clearly document a systematic extermination campaign approximately 47,000 years ago. But why? Asked one of the junior researchers. What made them such a threat? Sophia manipulated the display, shifting to genetic comparisons between recovered predecessor DNA fragments and modern humans. That's where it gets interesting. The predecessors weren't our ancestors. They evolved separately, but they evolved under the same planetary conditions we did. The display highlighted key genetic markers. Earth's high gravity, radiation levels, and environmental instability produced similar adaptations in both species. Extreme environmental adaptability, accelerated healing, and neurological structures optimized for rapid decision-making in crisis situations. A military observer stepped forward. You're saying the Vraxians wiped them out because they were too adaptable. Exactly, Sophia confirmed. The Vraxian Imperium has maintained galactic dominance through technological superiority and rigid cultural homogeneity. Species that adapt quickly, that innovate unpredictably, represent an existential threat to their way of life. She switched to another data set. Vraxian brain scans compared to human ones. Their neural architecture is fundamentally different from ours, more efficient in many ways, but far less plastic. They excel at optimization within established parameters, but struggle with paradigm shifts. So they killed an entire species because they couldn't predict them, Okafor added grimly. And now they're trying to do the same to us. Sophia nodded, but her attention had shifted to a different section of the recovered data, astronomical observations dating back thousands of years. Something about the pattern of stellar phenomena caught her attention. Wait, she murmured, isolating a section of the ancient star charts. These energy signatures, they matched the anomalous readings reported at Proxima Centauri after the battle. The room fell silent as implications cascaded. If the mysterious energy signatures detected by Admiral Tanner's fleet corresponded to phenomena documented in ancient Vraxian records, the next collective isn't new to our galaxy, Sophia realized aloud. They'd been here before. And according to these records, their last appearance coincided with the extinction of not just the predecessors, but 17 other spacefaring species. She rapidly cross-referenced timelines. The Vraxians survived that extinction event by retreating to their core worlds and essentially playing dead for centuries. When they re-emerged, they implemented their policy of preemptively eliminating any species that showed similar neural plasticity to those the Nex had targeted. The military observer's communicator chimed with an urgent alert. He scanned it, his expression darkening. Long-range sensors have detected massive objects decelerating at the heliopause. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures match those recorded at Proxima Centauri. Sophia felt a chill as the pieces aligned with terrible clarity. The Vraxian War was just the beginning. They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to eliminate us before something worse arrives. She initiated an emergency transmission to EDC headquarters. This changes everything. We need to contact the Vraxian High Command immediately. Contact them. Okafor stared incredulously. They've been trying to exterminate us for 5 years. Sophia met his gaze steadily. Because they're terrified. Not of what we are, but of what we'll attract. The next collective target's adaptable species, and we just announced our presence by defeating the Vraxian fleet. We've rung the dinner bell. As she finalized her report for Earth's leadership, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had unwittingly stepped into a conflict far older and more terrible than their war with the Vraxians. The recovered data suggested the Nex didn't just destroy civilizations, they harvested them, extracting something fundamental from adaptable species before moving on. The ancient Vraxian records had a name for this cycle of extinction. The culling. Admiral Cruz strode through the Pentagon's underground war room, the neural implant at her temple pulsing with incoming data streams. Holographic displays showed the fracturing Earth Defense Coalition in stark statistical terms: resource allocation disputes, fleet deployment disagreements, and territorial claims increasing exponentially since the Proxima Centauri victory. The Lunar Independence Party is threatening to withhold helium-3 shipments unless they receive autonomous governance, her aide reported. And the Mars Reconstruction Committee is demanding 40% of the new Devastator production capacity be assigned to their orbital defense grid. Cruz ignored the political noise, her attention fixed on Dr. Nikolaev's latest transmission. The revelation about the Next Collective and their historical pattern of harvesting adaptable species had been classified at the highest levels, shared only with key military and scientific leadership. Has the Vraxian communication package been decoded? She asked. Partially, her intelligence officer replied. Their encryption is complex, but we've confirmed they're aware of the next approach. Their fleet movements suggest they're consolidating around their core worlds, abandoning outlying colonies. Cruz studied the strategic projection. The Vraxians were effectively creating a buffer zone between their civilization and the approaching threat, a buffer that included contested human territory. A priority alert flashed across her neural interface. The Chinese-Brazilian fleet had engaged Vraxian forces at Epsilon Eridani without authorization from Central Command. The fragmentation was accelerating. Get me a direct channel to President Oka, Cruz ordered, and alert all fleet commanders. Condition Omega is now in effect. Her staff exchanged alarmed glances. Condition Omega granted Cruz emergency powers superseding civilian authority, a measure intended only for extinction-level threats. The politicians won't accept military control, her deputy warned. They don't understand what's coming, Cruz replied. The coalition is arguing over scraps of territory while an existential threat approaches. We don't have time for consensus. Before her team could respond, the main display flickered and resolved into an incoming transmission, not from Earth, but from the edge of the solar system. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had captured imagery of the first Nex vessel crossing Neptune's orbit. The room fell silent as the visualization rendered. The Nex ship defied conventional design, a massive structure resembling an obsidian nautilus, 16 kilometers across, surrounded by a corona of particles that bent light in impossible ways. Passive scans detect no conventional propulsion system, the science officer reported, voice barely steady. No radiation signature, no exhaust. It's just moving. Cruz accessed the classified Vraxian data through her neural link, comparing it with the live feed. The Vraxians call them world eaters. According to their historical records, a single ship can strip a planet of all organic material down to the mantle within hours. She made her decision. Turning to her communications officer, she issued orders that would either save humanity or tear it apart. Initiate Protocol Black Flag. All Earth Defense Coalition vessels are hereby placed under direct military authority. Political authorization requirements are suspended. All ships with functional drive systems are to rally at Mars Defensive Line Alpha. Her aide hesitated. Ma'am, that's technically a coup. No, Cruz corrected grimly. That's survival. If we don't present a unified front against what's coming, there won't be politics left to worry about. She activated the emergency broadcast system, her neural implant connecting directly to communication networks spanning from Earth to the outermost colonies. Attention all Earth Defense Coalition forces and citizens. This is Admiral Helena Cruz. An extinction-level threat has been confirmed approaching the solar system. All interplanetary disputes are hereby suspended. This is not about territory, resources, or autonomy anymore. The display updated with real-time tracking of the next vessel's approach vector. This is about the survival of our species. Stand together or die alone. As her message echoed across human space, Cruz received a priority encoded transmission from an unexpected source. A Vraxian diplomatic vessel requesting permission to enter the solar system under flag of truce. The message contained 3 words that confirmed everything Dr. Nikolaev had theorized. The culling returns. High Admiral Kethal's vessel docked with Harmony Station, the newly constructed diplomatic outpost positioned at the Lagrange point between Earth and Luna. The crystalline architecture of the Vraxian diplomatic shuttle created prismatic patterns across the docking bay as human security forces established a perimeter. Admiral Kruz waited alone at the airlock, against all security protocols. This moment demanded symbolic parity. Leader to leader, potential ally to potential ally, despite the blood between their civilizations. The airlock cycled open, revealing Kethal's imposing form. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the Vraxian admiral's iridescent exoskeleton caught the light as he ducked through the human-sized doorway. His 4 manipulator arms were conspicuously empty of weapons, though the neural interfaces at each joint suggested formidable integrated capabilities. Admiral Kruz, the alien's voice emerged through his translator device, the synthetic tones failing to capture the clicking undertones of his native speech. Your species continues to surprise. I expected armed guards and restraint fields. This isn't a time for posturing, Kruz replied evenly. Your message mentioned the culling. Our xenorchaeologists have recently uncovered evidence of the previous extinction cycles. Kethal's compound eyes shifted, focusing on Kruz with unnervingly precise attention. Then you understand why I am here. The Next do not discriminate between our civilizations. They harvest adaptive intelligence regardless of species. Kruz gestured toward the observation dome. As they walked, she noted the Vraxian's uneven gait, the result of injuries sustained in the Battle of Epsilon Indi, where one of her own battleships had shattered the alien flagship. Your people attempted genocide against mine, Kruz stated without inflection. 10 billion humans dead. World sterilized. How do I convince my species to set that aside? Kethal's manipulator arms performed a complex gesture that her cultural database identified as an expression of profound regret. We acted according to historical precedent, the Vraxian explained. For 12,000 years, the Imperium has eliminated adaptable species before they could achieve interstellar capability. To prevent them from attracting the Next, Kruz finished. Yes, when your commander Reyes destroyed our flagship during first contact, using primitive kinetic weapons that bypassed our defenses, the High Command received confirmation of what we feared. Humanity possesses the same adaptive traits the Next seek. We attempted to eliminate your species as we had 17 others. Kethal paused as they reached the observation dome. Through the transparent ceiling, the stars were visible, and among them, the faint distortion where the first Next vessel altered spacetime around itself. We failed, the Vraxian continued. Your battleships proved unexpectedly resilient. Your tactics defied our predictive algorithms, and in doing so, you proved yourselves exactly the kind of species the Next hunt. Kruz's neural implant pulsed with incoming data, Next energy signatures detected at Alpha Centauri, approaching faster than predicted. You have weapons against them, she stated, not a question. Knowledge from previous encounters. Limited, Kethal admitted. The Imperium survived the last culling by hiding, not fighting. But we have observed their behavior patterns, documented their vulnerabilities. The Vraxian extracted a data crystal from a compartment in his exoskeleton. This contains everything we know about the Next. Tactical data, sensory recordings, theoretical countermeasures. In exchange, we request sanctuary for our civilian evacuation ships within your defensive perimeter. Kruz eyed the crystal. Sanctuary for the species that tried to exterminate us. Ironic, Kethal. I'll acknowledge. But the alternative is extinction for both our civilizations. Before Kruz could respond, her neural implant flashed with priority alerts. The Deep Space Monitoring Network had detected multiple new Next signatures entering the solar system. They're accelerating their approach, she realized aloud. Something's drawn their attention. Hithel's posture shifted subtly. They sense our communication. Adaptive species working together represent their highest priority target. Cruz made her decision, accepting the data crystal. I'll need to convince my leadership. Not everyone will accept this alliance. They must, Cadeful replied simply. The culling has begun. And this time, the Nex will not depart until every trace of both our species has been harvested or destroyed. As if to punctuate his statement, the observatory lighting flickered as the first electromagnetic pulse from the approaching Nex vessel washed over the station. Time had run out. Humanity and the Vraxian Imperium would forge their alliance in fire, or perish separately in darkness. Commander Sato felt the humanity's hope shudder as another Nex energy beam grazed their outer hull. The massive battleship, pride of Earth's fleet, seemed fragile compared to the nightmarish Nex worldship that dominated Earth's orbital space. Status on the Leviathan and New Damascus, he demanded, hands dancing across the neural interface as he manually recalibrated the ship's defensive systems. Leviathan reports ready, approaching Vector Delta. His tactical officer replied. New Damascus has sustained heavy damage, but remains operational enough for the final approach. Sato allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. Even with their most advanced weapons, the Nex couldn't easily destroy a Devastator-class battleship. Human engineering, focused on survivability over elegance, was buying them the precious minutes they needed. Through the command neural link, Sato felt the death of every ship in the combined fleet. Human vessels fought alongside Vraxian cruisers in a desperate holding action as Operation Samson's strike team approached their target. The sensory feed showed Earth below, its atmosphere already showing disturbance patterns from the Nex's initial harvesting beams. Cadeful's flagship is hailing, communications reported. The Vraxian admiral's image appeared, his exoskeleton scorched, and one manipulator arm entirely missing. Commander, we've identified the world ship's central processing node. Transmitting coordinates now. It differs from historical records. They've adapted. Sato nodded tersely. Understood. We're updating our approach vectors. There is something else, Cadeful added, mandibles clicking with what Sato had learned was agitation. Our analysis of the Nex energy patterns confirms Dr. Nikolev's theory. They are not merely destroying biomatter. They are extracting and preserving specific neural patterns. Harvesting consciousness, Sato murmured. Yes, the targeted patterns match the unique neural architecture of adaptive species. Whatever they are collecting, it relates directly to our capacity for innovative thought. Before Sato could respond, proximity alarms blared. A Nex harvester, one of the smaller vessels deployed from the world ship, had detected their approach and moved to intercept. Evasive maneuvers, Sato ordered, then activated the direct channel to Dr. Chen in the engineering section. Doctor, we need the dimensional collapse drive now. Chen's weathered face appeared on the display, radiation burns evident across his features. Behind him, engineering crews worked frantically among exposed circuitry and pulsing reactor cores. The calibration isn't complete, Chen warned. If we activate prematurely, the collapse could initiate before we reach the target. We don't have a choice, Sato replied as the ship rocked under another impact. The harvesters have spotted us. Chen nodded grimly. Understood. Initiating final arming sequence. God help us all. Sato opened a channel to all 3 suicide ships. This is Commander Sato. Dimensional collapse drives are armed. We have one shot at this. Remember your training and your oaths. He looked at the faces of his bridge crew, men and women who had volunteered for a mission with no return. Some were veterans of the Vraxian War, others newly commissioned officers who had never seen combat before today. All would die in the next 20 minutes. It has been my honor, he told them simply. As the 3 ships accelerated toward the next world ship's processing node, Sato accessed his personal neural storage. He uploaded his final message to his family, along with sensor data that might prove valuable if Operation Samson failed. The next harvester fired again, the strange energy beams slicing through the New Damascus's port section. The ship's reactor went critical, detonating in a spectacular eruption that momentarily blinded sensors. New Damascus is gone, Tactical reported. Leviathan reports critical damage but remains on course, communications added. They're accelerating to maximum. Sado made a split-second decision. Tell Leviathan to engage their dimensional collapse drive the moment they're in range. We'll follow 30 seconds behind on a different vector. Two-pronged attack, his XO realized. They won't be able to intercept both ships. Exactly. One of us will reach the target. As the Humanity's Hope accelerated to suicidal velocity, the vast structure of the next world ship filled their viewports. Its alien architecture defied human comprehension. Organic and mechanical elements seamlessly integrated into a structure that seemed to exist partially in another dimension. Leviathan has engaged their drive, Tactical announced. Spatial distortions detected. They've breached the outer shell. Sado felt a surge of triumph that died instantly as the sensors showed the world ship's response. A massive energy surge that engulfed the Leviathan, containing and redirecting its dimensional collapse. They've neutralized it, his science officer whispered in horror. They've adapted to our weapon. Sado closed his eyes briefly. Operation Samson, humanity's final gambit, had failed. But as he reopened them, he saw something unexpected through the forward viewport. A Vraxian dreadnought accelerating toward the breach the Leviathan had created. Kethal's voice came through the comms, clear despite the interference. Commander Sado, the breach remains partially open. Our vessel's power core has been modified to enhance your dimensional weapon's effect. We will clear the path. Before Sado could respond, the Vraxian flagship slammed into the world ship's wound, detonating in a blinding flash that tore the breach wider. Full power to engines, Sado ordered. Take us in. The Humanity's Hope plunged into the expanding breach, alarms blaring as the ship's hull stressed beyond design tolerances. Through the neural link, Sado felt rather than saw the approach to the processing node, a pulsing structure at the world ship's heart. Dimensional collapse drive at critical charge, Chen reported. 5 seconds to irreversible activation. Sado addressed his crew one final time. For Earth, for all sentient life. As the drive engaged, reality itself seemed to fold inward. The last sensation Sado experienced was a strange pulling feeling, as if his consciousness were being drawn into the collapsing dimensional vortex along with the ship. And then, nothing. Commander Sophia Rice stepped away from the diplomatic proceedings to study the technical schematics floating in her neural display. The Guardian-class prototype under construction in Earth orbit represented something unprecedented. A true collaboration of technologies from 32 formerly isolated or hostile species. Impressive, isn't it? A familiar voice observed. Sophia turned to find Kfal approaching, his new cybernetic limbs gleaming under the station's lights. The Vraxian admiral had survived the Battle of Earth, though barely. His flagship's sacrifice had made the dimensional collapse possible, and with it, humanity's survival. The dimensional barriers are still stabilizing, Sophia noted, gesturing toward the viewport where the sacrifice point shimmered with exotic energy. The scientists say it's changing fundamental constants within a 3-light-year radius. Kfal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Nex operated beyond conventional physics. In destroying them, we've altered the fabric of local spacetime itself. A junior officer approached with an urgent data packet. Sophia reviewed it quickly, her expression hardening. The deep space observatories have confirmed it, she told Kfal quietly. The anomalies beyond the galactic rim are multiplying. Whatever we destroyed wasn't their entirety, just an expeditionary force. Kfal absorbed this without visible reaction, though Sophia had learned to read subtle shifts in his exoskeletal plates that indicated concern. The culling is a cycle, he responded. We may have disrupted it, but the Nex existed for millions of years. Their consciousness may transcend individual vessels. Sophia's attention shifted to another feed in her neural display. Live footage from the research station orbiting the sacrifice point. Scientists from a dozen species work together to study fragments of next technology recovered from the dimensional tier. Dr. Nikolaev's team has been analyzing the consciousness extraction matrices recovered from the debris, Sophia said. They've confirmed the necks weren't just harvesting neural patterns, they were incorporating them. Each world chip contained billions of extracted consciousness fragments from previous harvested species. A collective intelligence, Cathal observed, growing with each culling. Yes, but there's more. Sophia hesitated, uncertain how to express the most disturbing discovery. The fragment patterns matched theoretical models of ascension. The necks may have been attempting to create a transcendent consciousness, using adaptability as raw material. Before Cathal could respond, the station's emergency systems activated. Proximity alerts blared as sensors detected a spatial distortion forming near the sacrifice point. Evacuation protocols initiated. The station AI announced calmly, "Unknown spatial anomaly detected." Sophia and Cathal rushed to the observation deck, joined by representatives from the newly formed Galactic Concord. The viewport showed a swirling vortex of energy where stable space had been moments before. Defensive fleets responding. A tactical officer reported, Guardian prototype moving to intercept. Sophia felt a strange pressure building in her mind as the vortex stabilized. Around her, others clutched their heads or sensory organs, experiencing the same phenomenon. Through the neural network, reports flooded in of the sensation extending throughout nearby systems. "It's a transmission." Dr. Nikolaev's voice cut through the chaos. Her research team patched in from their station. "The energy pattern is organizing into coherent information. It's coming from inside the dimensional rift." The pressure resolved into something like language, not heard or seen, but directly experienced. Sophia recognized something in the transmission pattern, something impossibly familiar. "Commander Sato," she whispered in disbelief. The response came not in words but in pure conceptual transfer, confirmation, reassurance, warning. The consciousness that had been Commander Sato, along with his crew and countless others, had not been destroyed in the dimensional collapse. They had been transformed, integrated into something new that existed in the space between conventional dimensions. "They're saying the necks are coming." Cathal translated. His specialized neural augments better adapted to processing the strange communication. "But they're also saying we have allies we didn't know existed. Other transformed consciousnesses from previous cullings who resisted integration." Sophia addressed the assembled representatives of the Concord, her voice steady despite the extraordinary situation. "We need to accelerate the Guardian program, and we need to establish permanent communication protocols with whatever our people have become." As the diplomatic corps erupted into urgent discussion, Sophia shared a moment of understanding with Cathal. The war had not ended with the Battle of Earth. It had merely evolved into something beyond conventional comprehension. Humanity and the Vraxians had survived not by military might alone, but by unwittingly creating something new, a hybrid consciousness that could operate in the same dimensional space as their adversaries. The junior officer returned with another update. "Commander, long-range scans are detecting unusual activity at the Galactic core. Something's responding to the transmission from the rift." Sophia nodded grimly. "Alert all Concord vessels. The next phase begins." The legend of human battleships would continue, but in a form no one could have predicted. Not just as weapons of war or symbols of peace, but as bridges between dimensions in a conflict that would reshape the very nature of consciousness itself.